Welcome to the Frisco Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Ellis, and today we're hanging out with Buddy and Robin from Visual Learning Solutions. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Scott.
It's good to have you here. Visual Learning Solutions. I'm guessing you help people teach.
Well, it's visual because I'm a visual learner.
Okay.
And obviously when we picked the brand years ago, we wanted it to be in the name, what we do. So we designed training for the visual learner to be consumed, as most people do now, on some type of device. That's really kind of where we started, was picking a lane on how we're going to deliver training. So it's training development. Basically, if you, like most people, have taken some type of online training, you've consumed, say, e-learning or watched a training video, that is what we do.
Gotcha. So just so I know kind of who we're talking to here, if I'm going to teach a course, I want to develop a course that's going to be out online and somehow consumed through devices online. Do I come to you to help me produce and develop that? Is that what I understand correctly then?
Yes. So I'm Buddy Broyles. I'm the CEO of the company. I'm the chief creative, if you will, but I wear a lot of different hats. And of course, my business partner, Denise Broyles, she's the operations manager, and Robin, seated to my right, she's the senior creative editor and other things. But when we're approached and when we talk to new customers, our goal is to understand basically from concept delivery and where they are in that cycle. So if you, for example, if you're a typical trainer that is like instructor-led, you lead courses, you talk in front of people, in front of a room, maybe with a PowerPoint or something like that, we would want to understand, what are your goals and who's the greater audience you're trying to reach. For our corporate customers, they will reach out to us and say, well, Buddy, we have instructional designers, people that understand how people learn, and they're trained in that area. They've written a script or they have some type of content already created. We need your help fulfilling that. Either it's video production or it's e-learning design or graphic design or even help designing the brand of that training. What does it look like? How, what's the user experience? How are people consuming that? So we can answer a lot of different questions based on whatever the need, whatever you bring to me as even as someone who doesn't know how people learn, but that you have a topic that you need them to consume. Then we just start the conversation there.
Gotcha. So I'm curious, what was it that got you guys into this business and wanting to help develop courses and training and education for online consumption?
Well, Robin, if you don't mind, kind of start with your history.
Well, like Buddy, I'm a visual person. I've always been a visual storyteller, and I started out in the industry, working on TV and corporate stuff, and then I went into teaching for a while, and I was in public education, and teaching is something that came very naturally to me. And so when I got out of education and came back to the production industry, I, met up with Buddy. I knew him while I was teaching. He actually came and talked to my classes. But it was a perfect fit for me because I could utilize my education background and my visual storytelling strengths and marry the two together.
Yeah, that's kind of a match made in heaven right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Good deal. So I'm kind of curious, when you're putting together or helping somebody to kind of come up with the look and the feel and developing that online training, are we building things that are not only maybe somebody on camera, whiteboard stuff, but also graphics, infographics, and kind of motion graphics and things like that incorporated into it? Do you guys do all that stuff?
We do it all. And so as I've mentioned before, or possibly it's concept to delivery. So we'd like to host what is called a discovery session. It's very similar to the marketing life cycle. So it's essentially bringing all of the stakeholders together, even if it's just one person on the other side of the table with us, and to understanding their brand, their goals, their audience. So that's the discovery, and that usually results in a report that this is the roadmap for what the project should look like from a 10,000 foot up level. And so once we have that, and that can be anywhere in the life cycle of the product, but it's essentially we understand all of the different things you want to do, or at least we try to extract that in that conversation. It's almost like a group therapy. Mm-hmm. We've had a session like that literally lasted 8 hours, and we filled entire whiteboards with all of these different, basically just words. What does this mean to you? Well, what about this? What does success look like? What are the different personas who are either giving the training, facilitating, if you will, or receiving the training? So we map all of that out. And that's how we understand really where we're going with this, because it's just like anything else. Failure plan is planning to fail.
Right.
And so that's very important in the training market, especially some of these projects are large. The largest project Robin and I are working on right now is a training program, and we're on like month 18 or so. We've been at it for some time, so it's important to get it right from the beginning. So to answer your question, we offer so much that is everything that can be consumed. We have a vast network of really talented people, and that's, I'll get to our business model briefly, but we call it a flex and surge. So we have 5 core employees and a handful of really powerful contractors that are here in-house. And then last year we had 60 1099s. So we have a bunch of different people that have, they're all, every discipline you can imagine that contributes to the visual learning field, from instructional designers to graphic designers to people that specifically do those hand-drawn videos that you've seen. We have a lot of different talented artists. A lot of them have a background in even marketing, so they understand how the spatial relationship that needs to live on the screen so people can consume it at the pace they need to consume it. So the real answer is we do it all. I mean, I hate to sound cliche when I say that, but we absolutely bring the flex and surge model, which Rob and I have talked about, is basically we bend to whatever the needs are of that particular project and client. And an example would be, say, if you're in the food service industry, we'd find an instructional designer or a graphic designer or someone who has produced content somewhere within that industry, rather than just putting a round peg in a square hole.
Right.
We don't just fit a person; we find the right fit. So when we present at the beginning of the project or wherever the project is in its life cycle, we make sure we bring the right team. So especially if there's a contractor, because we want to understand the full project and where the talent and the instructional design talent on the other side, and of course where the learner is. We want to make sure that the language is right, the proper vernacular is used. So it basically eliminates some of the project learning curve and eliminates some of the confusion in conversations in communication.
One of the key elements of any training course is obviously the content itself. I would imagine that the customers that come to you have expertise in their area and they want to turn that into a course. How much of the actual content development side of things do you help with, or is it kind of up to the person that's hiring you to really develop the content for the course?
It depends on the project. There's sometimes, like Buddy said, they'll come to us with a script, and so then we just have to understand, who the audience is and how they're best going to learn, and then we can help structure the visuals to support that content. And then sometimes they'll come to us with a concept, and they'll say, okay, we've got this idea, but we don't know what it looks like. We don't know what it sounds like. And then we can certainly help break that down. And that goes back to that discovery session, understanding what the goals are and who the audience is for that. Because visual storytelling is all about knowing your audience and what they need to be able to consume it. And so then, sometimes we start from the ground up and help them write that, whether it be dialogue or writing it out in pictures, to tell the story. But like we have a kind of a mantra that, you can't put anything on the screen that's going to distract your viewer, because you have to understand what the viewer is looking for, and you have to know what the goal of the product is so that you can get those two to meet in the middle.
Makes a lot of sense. It sounds like you guys have good alignment with that in terms of making sure that whatever is going to get produced is going to march down the path to meeting that goal.
Right.
Because it's super easy to get off the rails on stuff like that. I've done it
and even
times.
The audience, the project that Buddy mentioned that we've been working on for 18 months, we started out with a fairly narrow audience. And what we realized as the project took life was that it really had a much broader audience than our target.
International, in fact.
Yeah. And so that's been part of the growing that project and going, everybody needs to see this, not just our original audience, and just making sure that it's consumable in a lot of different ways.
Right.
And one of the outcomes of the discovery session we often find, I mentioned it's kind of a group therapy, is that we discovered that the people who are basically either funding it or it's their baby per se, the project is their baby, we help them understand that they aren't necessarily the audience of this training. Right. A lot of, especially think in terms of business owners and whatnot, they see it as how they want it to be, and they sometimes forget to step outside of that and what is the learner needing from that, because they may know their brand in and out. So they'll make assumptions all along the training process of they should know this, they should know this. Well, say a new employee won't know, what the company is about. They won't know certain things. Even if the company's been around for 20 years in business, they may not know the brand. So there's all these different things that we try to pull them out of their product, and we pull them away from them being the person that goes, yes, this is perfect for me. They're not the learner.
Yeah,
So they're not the audience.
That's a classic marketing mistake, is assuming that you are the audience. Rarely is that the case. In fact, I think most of the time you have to kind of step outside your own body and, have that experience of looking in from the outside. So glad to hear that you guys bring that to the table. So you talked a little bit about the flex model and having the contractors that kind of augment what you do depending on the need. One thing I know you guys have that is a bit more permanent is a pretty amazing studio space that you've built as well. Talk to us a little bit about the capabilities of that, as I've seen a little bit of it, but I'm sure there's much more to it than what I've seen.
Certainly. Well, originally, Dallas is a big market, and there are a lot of studios here. There's lots of capability here, and that's actually the real benefit of being in this market. As I mentioned, the Flex and Surge model, we have access, and of course, we're members of the local ATD Dallas chapter.
What does ATD stand for?
The Association of Talent Development.
Got it.
So we're a major sponsor of some of their events. But so by knowing that group and all these other ancillary groups, alignment with UNT for interns and other talent, we have access to a terrific amount of talent. So recently, with some restructuring in the current building we're in, we decided to take on an additional space. It's about 400 square feet with 17-foot ceilings. And given we conduct so much of our production in-house, as in from script to screen, we decided to build a studio within our space. So we're basically in the middle of the building on the second floor, and it's we built in a white cyc on one side, and then we have those heavy, curtains for theater and whatnot. And then in-house, we have 4 4K cameras with stands. Of course, the grid, it's basically what you expect to see when you walk in a studio. You have a lighting grid, you have soundproofing, you have all types of capability. And some of our on-location products, we use something called Sling Studio, which is a live switch product, multi-camera. That works very well in-house as well, because then we have several cameras set up. We can have people on set, up to ideally 3 people on set. Again, this is a 400 square foot studio.
Yeah.
It's not huge, so it's right for a lot of the training products we do, for like a green screen setup or stand and deliver. We have teleprompters in there that are camera mounted, so it looks like a news set, if you will. So as a trainer or anybody who has a message to convey, they're looking right into the audience's eyes. They're looking through the lens for the teleprompter. So it has terrific capability. Again, live switching even to the web. We can live stream, multicam switch to the web. The benefit of that, and what we're telling people, is the benefit is you effectively have a live switch show once you're done. Say you come in for 30 minutes, it's switched. I say live. It's switched live, not necessarily broadcast live. And so you walk out with an edited program. A lot of people will take several cameras into the field, and then they have to go back and edit those individually into something finished. The benefit of using our studio in this setup is it's almost done. So it cuts down significantly on a heavy cost, which is post-production.
Yeah, and very time-consuming as well.
Correct.
So when you say switch, just to be clear so that our audience knows what you're talking about, you're actually switching between the different cameras as the video is being shot.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
instead of having to do that in post-production, you've got this thing that nicely moves between different people that are on set.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, think of like any news show you watch where you see the close-ups, the wide shots. All of that is happening just like would happen in a live situation.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's Sling Studio?
Yeah, it's called Sling Studio. It's
Do they make a backpack type thing?
yes.
I think I know
that's
who
how
they
they
are.
advertise. It's basically a wireless hub, and again, we're not a reseller, so I get no benefit from this. But we have 2 of them in house though, because they are very useful for us. What's important about that product is it's wireless and battery capable. And you put a box, basically a little broadcast box, on top of your camera that's HDMI connected. It has its own battery, so you can effectively. And the reason we invested in this was we had a oil and gas company that wanted to train on location, and some of these locations, these pipes coming out of the ground that you'll see on the highways, those are out there. So we had to have something that was completely wireless and battery capable. And so our typical setup for a field situation using this technology is an iPad, which is the user interface, so that you see little cameras, the layout on the screen, graphics and other video you could roll in. And then you have a hub, and then multiple cameras with those little connectors, and it's also drone capable. So
Wow.
for this customer, we have a drone in the air which is a live video feed. So if you have someone out there training with, their protective equipment in a truck or something like that, you can see it from above and you can see it from multiple camera angles, and then we can live switch it and record it right there. So it's ready to go.
That's
It's
pretty cool.
fantastic.
I'm kind of geeking out right
the
now. That's pretty
portability
awesome.
of it. That was the main reason, is the portability, but it works very well in a studio setup.
Gotcha. And then, so you kind of answered my next question, and that was, do you do production in the field as well, or is it just in studio? And it sounds like you guys are out and about there when need be.
Certainly. Our most recent field production was a TEDx event in Pleasant Grove this past month, and it was 4 cameras using the same setup. So it was a live setup, live stage. If you've seen a TEDx that's well produced, it looks good. Again, recording with 4K capable cameras, everything looks and sounds great. But we have a number of, including the Southwest Learning Summit, which is put on by ATD Dallas in August. We have 2 different multi-camera setups planned for that event, to where we record the speakers, record the keynotes, and have all of that for posterity. We'll also we'll be doing a podcast there as well. But all of that is to augment, or basically to show off, not augment, to show off our capability of how we can set up these multiple live events. And again, I say they're not necessarily broadcast live, but they're live switched. So as soon as we're done, as soon as the speaker is finished speaking, we basically pull the hard drive out and transfer it to them, so they have the entire presentation ready.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And that's what makes our field unit so capable.
Okay. Is there an ideal customer for you guys?
That's a good question. What do you think, Robin?
We like to make training that does good in the world. We want our products to make a difference for someone, and sometimes that's fairly simple. It means that a machine's going to be cleaned right and everybody's going to be healthier, and sometimes it's going to make people feel safe or be safe. And that's kind of, we like the clients that come to us and say, we've got a product, or we need a video that's going to make a difference in people's lives. Those are the ones we really like to get behind.
Okay, fair enough.
And that's kind of our why. We really want to do good. And Robin has this really great saying, some projects are for the meal, some are for the reel, and video production
Yep.
and film production, they call it, that's your demo reel that shows off your best work. And we understand that not all of it can be that way. So we are definitely actively seeking, not just the real work, but something that does good. And we'll continue to do that. We have basically 2 different product sets that we're working on, as what we described up till now as custom work. And we're approached by a customer who usually they own everything, and because it's an internal delivery, say some of the corporate entities that we work for, that's not going to be shown outside of their walls, because it's a proprietary process or something for their team, their training. What we're looking to do now, actively seeking partners, say an instructional designer, someone that knows their industry, knows their field. Maybe they've even developed some training content that they're currently giving as an instructor in front of a live audience. And then we're wanting to turn that into off-the-shelf training. So right now, everything we do is custom work for a specific audience. Mm-hmm. We want to now pivot to an additional product line that is off-the-shelf, so it's designed in mind of a larger audience than the trainer currently has. And maybe even outside of their market if necessary.
Could you give me an example of what that might look like? Just
I'll give you a broad one. I'm not going to go that route, but it's. Should I go the puppy route?
That's what I was
Why don't you describe it without giving away too much detail?
Buddy was teasing me about doing a puppy training video. I was having a particularly emotional day with one of our products that's just a tough topic. And he goes, "Don't worry, that puppy training video is coming next." And and I took him seriously. And
You did.
Yeah. So, but thinking about, who doesn't have a dog, and when you get a dog, you need help training it, and there are dog trainers, and the dog trainers often need help training. And so we're talking to a couple of subject matter experts in dog training about possibly developing a curriculum that would target a lot of different audiences that would involve dogs, because it's fun and it's going to do good.
very nice. It will do good. And is that something that you guys would produce just entirely on your own and then make it available to dog trainers, for example?
Yeah, we're working both the kind of the front end, talking to this particular expert on how well they know the industry, kind of making a business case for it, and then separately, it's kind of like the discovery session I mentioned previously. We would have that within our group, and decide, who's, what is the brand, and especially who is the audience? What's the size of the audience? A lot of the corporate companies we serve, they serve thousands. We're developing this training for thousands, and it does cost a reasonable amount of money depending on the size of the project. So for something like this, we have to make sure that it has a reach that makes the investment worthwhile.
Yeah.
And we're not just we're targeting a number of different industries. So it won't. We aren't planning for a niche here. It's more of a. We're looking at one for. Kind of a smaller aircraft training, for different aspects of that. We have a SME there. So we're not limiting that. We're casting a very broad net. It's more about the process. What's the business case for each of these products, and then how big is the audience? And it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to justify the cost.
Sure.
And
that totally makes sense.
And ideally be something that does good.
Right. Us, me being a subject matter expert.
Yes.
Right.
And, really, like Buddy said, it could be any industry, any subject matter expert that's out there that has, a training program that needs an audience, or that needs a product for their audience. That's, we want to talk to them.
So I've got a training course that I've been planning to develop for a long time. And it's going to be a paid course. Is that something I would come to you guys to help us develop as well and kind of do all the nice polished production around that?
Precisely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay. Good to know.
You're exactly the type of person we're looking for. Someone who has content, understands their content very well, probably understands their market and audience very well, but doesn't know. It's always that leap that you have to make of the things you don't know. It's the what you don't know that keeps you from moving forward. And that's why we're here, because we do know these things. And if we don't, we know people who do, and we'll bring them to the table.
Okay, good to know. Well, yeah, part of the process I'm going through right now is assessing the market size, making sure it's going to justify the level of effort required to teach what I think, I want this course to look like. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and people like you, if they're listening, we want to have those conversations.
Yeah.
But we will have a qualifying conversation that answers those questions, even for them. Again, it's kind of a group therapy session. You may think that you have what I've been saying lately is like this product is the bee's knees. It's the thing that really solves all the problems. You may find out there's a market of 10.
Right.
10 people, and maybe they're not that interested because they've just gone to YouTube and found their answer and they're done.
They don't know what they don't know.
They don't know what they don't
there's
know.
not a lot of things that are quite as deflating as putting a lot of work into building something like that only to find out that nobody cares.
Right.
Or they're just not interested. Yeah. Been down that road too, so we'll definitely make sure we get it right this time. So, okay. Is there anything about Visual Learning Solutions, like I want to ask the questions that you guys wish people would ask you when they first come to you? What are the things that people tend to, maybe they don't know to ask, or they shouldn't, or they should be asking, I should say, that they don't?
I think the question is, it's so hard for most people to get started and to understand the different models involved in developing this stuff, because there's science behind all of this.
I know I harp on the audience, but that is really the most important question that you have to answer is who is your audience? And like
yeah.
you said, is my audience 10 people who maybe should care, or is it 100,000 people who do already care and are going to consume this? But
do people often, I would imagine, underestimate the level of effort involved in bringing something like this to life?
I think that may be the better question, because I think the question we get most is how much does video cost?
Yeah.
And that's right out of the gate.
It depends is always the answer, right?
Well, a common misconception is video costs a certain amount, and so just to start this off, let me give you a little bit of my history. Because I know Robin hadn't given hers. I started out in broadcast news, and I've been in this business for about 30 years. Just about 2001 is 30 years for me. So historically, I've produced video content for just about every subject, including live patient surgery, cosmetic surgery, dentistry, firefighting, a lot of industrial. You name the topic, for the most part, I've been a part of it in some way. And the question most people approach us with is, how much is this going to cost? And so I always walk back to cost is such a variable, and what's important is we first understand, as Robin mentioned, who is the audience? What are you, this really? It all comes down to who are you? What's your brand? What are you trying to convey? Who is your audience, and what are your goals? What does success look like for this training product? And that's really it. Is what does success look like? Once we define what does success look like for this product, who's going to learn and how are they going to learn, and really what are the outcomes? What does success mean? And then from there, we just scale that back. Basically reverse engineer what the costs are. And typically, when we approach costs, I'll give them like a high-low. Here's the range we're expecting. If that's reasonable, then we'll continue the conversation. But most people are either surprised or shocked by a sticker if we go there first.
Yeah.
Because then it's very deflating until you figure out. And we also, having been in this business a very long time, I can also help with understanding the breakdown and savings in certain area, or we can talk about the greater market and maybe influence where it's going to go. Because we don't know. I can add anecdotes to, other customers have had this same problem, or other training products have had the same goal as yours, and we can go back and I can talk about how those succeeded. And kind of give them a little more enforcement of what they're doing and how they're doing it.
I would think that's a huge benefit to somebody in working with you guys, as you've seen so many of these courses and so many different types of training that have been built and delivered, that you can help people avoid a lot of the pitfalls that, if they haven't done this very much, they're inevitably going to run into some of those things. So
I definitely would want to convey that. While Visual Learning Solutions, we started in 2015, so we're in our 5th year. While the business is relatively new, we have been in this business a long time. And so between Robin and I, we've got roughly 30 years each. Sorry, Robin, in this business. And then
she started at 1 year old. It's amazing how bright she was at that age.
Brilliant. But we do bring a lot of we've learned through hard knocks and other situations that things have to be done a certain way, and they will succeed if you do and a lot of that happens just from the beginning, having conversations. And Robin will attest that when you begin talking to me, my ultimate goal is just to understand. Is to understand you all the things I've mentioned before. But there isn't. I'm not here, and my motivation isn't to make a dollar. It's to make good. Is to do good. And there's a saying, I'm going to paraphrase it. It's basically, if you do what you love, you're going to make money doing it. So we don't worry about the budget so much. I mean, obviously we're in business, but it's more about understanding the goals and success. Success for my customers means success for me.
Very good. Robin, any last thoughts before we log off here?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Good.
It's been a pleasure having you guys both on
Likewise.
the show today. I mean, we could probably go on talking about this for hours, and I would definitely love to learn and hear more, so maybe we'll have you guys back on before too long.
I look forward to the opportunity.
But love seeing companies like this right here in Frisco, Texas, making it happen. So if you've got training, if you need to train your people, if you have a training course idea for a broader market like I do, then visuallearningsolutions.com. And where else can they find you online besides the website?
We do have a Facebook presence, which is the same. And basically, if you just go to Facebook and type our name, you'll find us there. YouTube channel in development. And, of course, I and the business are both, we're all on LinkedIn. And so we publish on those regularly.
All right.
And not to overlook, but definitely the video production studio is the one part that is open to the public, whereas the rest of it is specifically for training. It is a business-friendly studio, and with business-friendly rates. Ideally, it's someone who's trying to promote their business or promote a product or something.
Okay, good. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I didn't realize that you guys had the studio. Like, people can book time and come in and shoot their stuff. And just for anybody that's curious, we started shooting the series that we're doing with UT Southwestern and Texas Health. The Frisco Physicians series is being shot in your studio. So
Correct.
Yeah, it's looking good. Thank you so much. Well, guys, thanks again for coming on the show and for the time today. We'll definitely have you back on and learn some more about it. But again, visuallearningsolutions.com. And thanks to all of you for tuning into the Frisco Podcast. As always, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, pretty much any place you're going to find a podcast, you're going to find us. So go out there, give us a like, leave us a comment, let us know what you think, and we will talk to you next time.